Beryl Warner Williams was born in Bangor, Maine in 1935. She attended the University of Maine and received her bachelor's and master's in mathematics, being the first Black alumna to do so. If you're walking past Williams Hall on UMaine's campus, you may notice a colorful pop when you look through the window. That's because the university has decided to dedicate Williams Hall to her educational work and her dedication to being a Black bear. The mural in the front of the building is to not only highlight her work as an educator, but her life as a whole, growing up in Bangor, Maine, as she faced many adversities just for being herself.
She has been committed from the earliest days, as far as I can tell in reading her history and learning about her, to making a difference in the world. And to honor an African-American woman in this way at the University of Maine, I think is critical and important to send the message that inclusion is what we are about at the University of Maine. And that we look at all of our alums and find places where we can celebrate their great successes, and this is one of those.
A ceremony will be held this Friday at 2 p.m. in Williams Hall, with options to attend in person or watch virtually. Descendants of Williams will be present, as well as Black artists, poets, and musicians, to honor the work Williams has done. President Joan Farini Mundy will also be a part of the program, and if you're looking for more information on that, you can look to RSVP or attend virtually by finding a link on our website.